If you had met me back then, you would have believed I was a good person. I believed it too. That's what made it so easy. That's what made the lie feel harmless, almost responsible. I told myself I was protecting someone. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I would fix it later. But later is where guilt goes to grow. The lie wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't the kind of secret that makes headlines. It was the kind that slips into ordinary life and poisons it quietly, because it changes how you look at yourself. It happened on an evening so normal I can still taste it: stale coffee, fluorescent light, the faint hum of an old refrigerator somewhere behind a closed door. I remember because nothing around me looked like a turning point. And yet, my whole life split in two. Before the lie, I was someone who could sleep. After the lie, I became someone who listened for consequences. I was younger then, still clinging to the belief that being good meant avoiding conflict. I thought morality was about keeping things calm. I confused peace with innocence. Someone asked me a question. A simple question. The answer could have been honest, uncomfortable, survivable. Instead, I chose the answer that felt easiest. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt relief, warm and immediate, like slipping into a bath after a long day. The tension in my shoulders melted. The situation smoothed over. No one looked at me differently. No one got hurt. That was my proof, I thought. See? It's fine. But something inside me tightened, almost imperceptibly, like a knot pulled one strand at a time. I didn't understand the feeling yet. I thought it was just nerves. It wasn't nerves. It was the first thread of a rope I would spend years tangled in. For a while, nothing happened. That's how secrets become habits. Time passes, and your mind starts to treat silence as confirmation that you did the right thing. Life continued. I went to work. I laughed at jokes. I texted friends. I watched movies and pretended the hollow feeling in my chest was just fatigue. But at night, in the dark, my thoughts returned to that moment. Not violently. Quietly. I replayed it. I polished the lie until it sounded reasonable in my head. I told myself I had no choice. I told myself truth would have caused damage. And maybe it would have. But what I didn't consider was the damage the lie would cause to me. Because the cost wasn't immediate. It wasn't something you can point to and say, that's the price. The price was the slow erosion of my own self-trust. I began to notice how carefully I spoke. How many details I edited out. How often I constructed sentences in advance, just in case someone asked the wrong question. That's the thing about a lie, it doesn't stay one lie. It requires maintenance. It requires a personality built around it. And slowly, without realizing it, I built one. I became cautious. Controlling. Hyper-aware of people's expressions. I developed a sensitivity to tone that felt like intuition but was really just fear. I started to avoid certain places, certain conversations, certain names. I didn't know I was shrinking my world until it started feeling too small to breathe in. From the outside, I was still fine. Inside, I lived with the constant awareness that my life wasn't solid. It was balanced on something false. Sometimes I tried to confess. In my mind, I rehearsed it. I imagined myself sitting someone down, taking a deep breath, and finally telling the truth. In the rehearsal, it always ended with relief. With forgiveness. with the world returning to order. But the moment I considered doing it for real, my stomach would twist. My mouth would go dry. My brain would flood with consequences. What if they hate me? What if I ruin everything? What if I hurt someone I love? What if this changes how people see me forever? So I stayed quiet. And the silence did what silence always does. It made the lie feel permanent. Years passed like that, quietly, dangerously. I changed jobs. Moved apartments. Met new people. Built new routines. But the lie followed me like a shadow that knew my shape. The strangest part was how normal my life looked even as it rotted from the inside. I would be smiling in a photo while my mind, just out of frame, was counting escape routes. Because that's what the lie turned into. An escape plan. Not from the world. From being found out. I started to understand why people disappear. Not because they want adventure, but because they want the past to stop breathing down their neck. And then, one day, something happened, small and ordinary, that made my blood go cold. A message. Just a few words on my screen. Not an accusation. Not a confrontation. A question. A question that should have been harmless. But it touched the exact place I had been hiding. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. My heart pounded as if my body had decided the danger was physical. In that moment, I saw my life clearly. I wasn't living. I was managing. Managing the lie. Managing the fear. Managing the version of me that everyone believed was real. And I realized something terrifying. If I didn't do something now, I would spend the rest of my life paying for that one easy choice. I stared at that message longer than anyone should stare at a phone. Not because I didn't know how to answer, but because every possible answer branched into a future I was terrified to step into. I could lie again. Smooth it over. Keep the structure standing. Or I could tell the truth and watch years of careful construction collapse in seconds. The lie had become load-bearing. That's how you know it's too late. I answered carefully. Not a lie. Not the truth. Something vague. Something that bought me time. I had become very good at that, responses that sounded honest without being dangerous. But my body didn't believe me anymore. After that message, the anxiety stopped being background noise. It moved to the center of everything. I woke up already exhausted. My chest felt tight for no reason. My thoughts raced even when nothing was happening. I began living in anticipation of exposure. Every notification made my stomach drop. Every unexpected question felt like an interrogation. I replayed past conversations, searching for cracks where the truth might already be visible. This is the part people don't talk about when they talk about guilt. Guilt isn't loud. It's vigilant. It turns you into a guard posted outside your own life, watching for threats that never sleep. I started pulling away from people. Not because they suspected anything, but because closeness felt dangerous. The closer someone got, the more they might see. The more they might ask. I confused isolation with safety. Relationships became performances. I showed up, I listened, I reacted appropriately, but I was never fully there. Part of me was always calculating, filtering, preparing. I missed moments I should have felt deeply. Joy passed through me like a visitor who wasn't allowed to stay long. Even happiness made me uneasy, because it felt undeserved. That's another cost of a lie no one warns you about. It poisons your right to feel good. I told myself I would confess when the timing was better. When things were calmer. When people were stronger. When it would hurt less. But timing is a convenient illusion. Life doesn't pause so you can be brave. The longer I waited, the more impossible confession became. The lie gained history. It became tangled with memories, decisions, even other people's choices. Telling the truth now wouldn't just reveal a mistake. It would rewrite the past. That thought paralyzed me. There were nights when I sat alone, lights off, replaying the moment again and again, the exact second I could have chosen differently. I imagined two versions of myself splitting apart. One who told the truth and dealt with the fallout. One who stayed silent and paid quietly, forever. I was living as the second version. And slowly, I began to resent myself for it. The resentment didn't explode. It leaked. It showed up as irritability. As fatigue. As a constant sense that my life was slightly out of alignment, like a picture hung crooked on the wall. I stopped recognizing my own reactions. Small problems felt overwhelming. Big decisions felt impossible. I was always tense, always braced for something bad to happen. My mind knew the truth. My body carried it. I started fantasizing about disappearing, not dramatically, not tragically. Just quietly removing myself from the situation altogether. Changing cities. Changing names. Becoming someone else. Not because I wanted adventure. Because I wanted relief. That's when I realized something that frightened me more than exposure. The lie wasn't just protecting me from consequences. It was shaping who I was becoming. I was becoming someone who avoided responsibility. Someone who chose comfort over integrity. Someone who mistook survival for living. That realization hurt. Because it meant the lie wasn't just in my past anymore. It was in my character. The breaking point didn't come with shouting or confrontation. It came with exhaustion. One evening, after a long day of pretending everything was fine, I sat alone and felt something inside me finally give up. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. I felt empty. Not numb like before. Empty in the sense that I had nothing left to justify myself with. No story. No excuse. No version of events that made me look like the hero. Just the truth. I had lied because it was easier. I had stayed silent because I was afraid. And I had paid for it with years of my life. That night, for the first time, I stopped asking how to avoid consequences. I asked a different question. What will it cost me if I don't tell the truth? The answer was immediate and terrifying. Everything. I didn't confess right away. That's the truth I have to live with. Even after I understood what it was costing me, fear still had weight. Fear doesn't disappear just because you see it clearly. Sometimes it tightens its grip when it realizes it's losing control. But something had shifted. The question, what will it cost me if I don't, refused to leave me alone. I tried to imagine the future I was building by staying silent. Not the next week. Not the next month. Years ahead. A life managed by avoidance. Relationships built on partial truth. A version of myself who never felt solid enough to relax. I saw it with painful clarity. I would survive. I would function. And I would slowly disappear inside a life that looked intact from the outside. That realization scared me more than consequences ever could. So I prepared. Not a speech. Not a dramatic reveal. Just honesty stripped of justification. I practiced saying the truth without defending myself, without explaining it into something smaller. That was harder than I expected. We instinctively want to soften our guilt, to frame it, to make ourselves understandable. But I knew that if I tried to control the outcome, I would lie again, just more elegantly. When the moment finally came, my body reacted before my mind did. My heart raced. My hands shook. My mouth felt dry, like it did years ago when the lie was born. Only this time, I didn't choose relief. I chose exposure. The truth didn't land gently. It wasn't met with instant forgiveness or dramatic outrage. It landed heavy, awkward, real. It created silence where there used to be certainty. And I let it. I didn't interrupt it. I didn't rush to fill the space. I didn't beg to be understood. I accepted whatever came next as part of the cost I had been avoiding. Some things broke immediately. Some things cracked slowly. Some things survived in forms I didn't recognize at first. Not everyone stayed. Not everyone needed to. That hurt more than I expected, even though I knew it was fair. Confession didn't give me relief the way the lie once had. It gave me something quieter and more unsettling. Alignment. For the first time in years, my thoughts, my words, and my actions existed in the same space. There was no longer a version of me hiding behind another. The anxiety didn't vanish overnight. Guilt doesn't evaporate just because you stop feeding it. But it changed shape. It stopped hunting me and started teaching me. I learned that integrity isn't about being flawless. It's about being willing to face the damage you cause instead of pretending it doesn't exist. I learned that silence can be just as harmful as cruelty when it protects comfort over truth. And I learned that one lie doesn't ruin your life. Refusing to face it does. I won't romanticize what came after. Life didn't magically improve. Some doors stayed closed. Some trust never fully returned. Consequences are not lessons you graduate from. But something fundamental changed. I could sleep again. Not perfectly. Not peacefully every night. But without the constant vigilance. Without the sense that my life was one wrong question away from collapse. I stopped planning escape routes. I stopped rehearsing conversations that never happened. I stopped living as if the present was something to endure until it passed. I became present again. If you're listening to this and carrying a secret you tell yourself is harmless, I won't judge you. I know how convincing that story can be. I know how heavy the fear feels. But I will tell you this, the lie you protect today will demand more from you tomorrow. It will take your peace first. Then your self-respect. Then your sense of reality. And one day, you'll realize you've spent years paying for a moment of comfort. I lied once. Not because I was evil. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. But because I was afraid. The truth hurt. But living without it hurt more. And choosing honesty, late, imperfect, costly honesty, was the first real second chance I ever gave myself.